In today's episode, we have Ollie Ollerton. Ollie is a former Special Forces soldier. He starred on TV programs like SAS Who Dares Wins. Today, we're going to discuss the absolute peak performance from a mindset perspective and how to take yourself to the next level in 2026. And before we get into the podcast, 90% of people who watch the podcast haven't subscribed. So if I could have one huge favor, hit the subscribe button. Now let's get into it. So Ollie, with your background in terms of Special Forces and the military, you've done a lot of very difficult and hard things. And we now live in a society where men are forcing themselves to do hard things because there's a soft world. What do you think men should try and look for in terms of their structure and their routine to make sure they aren't becoming a soft in a soft society?
Yeah, I mean, it is a choice, but the thing is a lot of people are choosing not to bother. You know, and you've got to understand this mechanism that we're operating from. You know, I always go back to our survival instinct. We're taught two things. You know, your underlying system wants to do two things, prioritize two things. First of all, it wants to eat at every opportunity. And secondly, it wants to rest at every opportunity. So you now take it from the primal days to where we are today with a food outlet. You know, go to London, there's a Pret every 6 meters or something like that. And also the fact you can absolutely do nothing to get stuff delivered to your door is creating an extreme amount of laziness. You know, so really, people have got to understand that when it comes to your mental health, when it comes to progressing through life, you've got to be leaning in against the grain a little bit. It's not about being uncomfortable per se every day and like doing the David Goggins style stuff where you're just punishing yourself. But it's about, I really believe that the answer, first of all, to mental health is or I like to call it mental wealth because it's an investment. First of all, it's the fact that we should always be aiming for something bigger. We should always be failing. Now, people can't handle failure because their ego can't handle it because they're scared that the outside world might see them as a failure. But once you drop the ego and understand that if you're not failing, then your goals aren't big enough. You know, and if you're not failing, then you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, it's a simple equation, really, isn't it?
So that I think is when actually I did an exercise earlier in the week in goal setting. And I was like, every year I set goals and I never hit them. That's because the goals are like ridiculous, but I kind of get like 80% there every year, but I'm happy because I'm still moving forwards. And I think for me, people are obsessed with happiness, whereas for me, if I just chase progression, that then gives me happiness because you're trying to get 1% better every day.
Yeah.
And I think where I've been most unhappy in my life, if I look when I was stuck in kind of a 9-to-5 job, it was the same shit every single day. And I was just living my life on repeat. And that's exactly what I didn't want for the next 30 years, which is why I had to make a change.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, really, you've got to ask yourself, what does happiness mean to you? Because it's an illusion. You know what I mean? Happy moments, yeah, great. But this happiness you're searching, what's it for? You know, the picture postcard of you going, oh, I'm so happy. Happiness is feeling successful, feeling like you're progressing. The operating system needs to feel a sense of progress to understand it's evolving through life. And when you are that way, it's not about, you know, look at me, I'm so happy, I need to take a selfie. It's about feeling that your nervous system is in balance. You've got brain and heart coherence. You are in a sweet spot. That's happiness. And you only get that from really understanding that your needs have been met emotionally, mentally, and financially. So
when you're in the Special Forces, do they ever try and get you to focus on happiness?
Not really. It's not like you get to the end of Special Forces selection, we like do a little quiz and then we're going to ask you how happy you are. You know, no, absolutely not. So, you know what? I want to talk about the Special Forces because everyone seems to, you know, and it's like rightly so as well. It's something I achieved and it's something I'm very proud that I did achieve. But the thing is, it's a benchmark of the past. And there's so many people that hang their caps on that, you know, they hang their hats on that benchmark of the past, not just in Special Forces, but we should be looking forward. You know, my goals, my dreams, my aspirations are that way. That was something that really did benefit me and I'm proud of it. But I do look back now and I think I was so linear. It was it was amazing that I passed Special Forces selection, but I was 23 years old. You know what I mean? When I look back now, I wasn't a completely amazing human being. I could shoot straight. I could swim underwater at night and get to target and get to the enemy. But really, I was extremely linear. You know, they taught us to be at comfort and chaos. That's no good for the modern world. And when I left, it was mayhem, absolute mayhem. And it's like almost, when I go back to that, I was talking about this the other day with someone. It's like the safest I ever was inside the military because I had someone else controlling my discipline. But as soon as I was released, the mayhem of Ollie Ollerton was just horrendous. And it took me a long time to get myself in check, to rebuild myself, to get rid of all these destructive habits that were just mayhem. And I was thinking about this morning. I was like doing a 45k cycle this morning. A lot of time to think, out there on your own. I don't wear earpods or that kind of thing. I think it's a really good time to go internally. And I was just sitting there thinking, what was I talking about?
About special forces and in terms of happiness, and then going down that kind of route.
Yeah. So this morning I can't remember the topic I was talking about though. I do this all the time. I digress on this path and then can't come back. So anyway, I was talking about being satisfied in the special forces and being quite linear, wasn't I?
You were really good at one thing, basically.
Really
and then the accountability was gone and you kind of went off the rails.
Yeah, I went off the rails. And and then it wasn't until much later on, it took me 10 years to unwind that, because there's not an off switch when you come out of that, and I was finding chaos everywhere. So they train you to be at comfort in chaos, but there's no mechanism afterwards. And this is not the same for everyone, but before I joined with a lot of trauma. My first memory of life on this planet was 10 years old. I got attacked by a circus chimp that nearly killed me, ripped me to bits. He never ripped enough out of me to feel that way. But anyway, so I joined with a lot of trauma. I then joined that, and it was kind of the most disciplined I was, because someone else I couldn't not be. Although I was quite a pain in the arse when I was in there, But and then when I left, I was left to my own sort of discipline and my own self-discipline. It went haywire again. It wasn't until I crashed and burned like 10 years after the military, where I now look at that as my greatest battle, but my greatest breakthrough. And that was really, when I look at it, it was like, and I read a lot about this, and it's like my soul actually wanted to step forward 10 years later. You know what I mean? This identity that I'd built for so many years, and we all do this, don't we? We build this identity that is not necessarily who we are, but a lot of the time we're doing it because we want to please the audience. And for me at that point, it seemed like a breakdown. And the more you then try to salvage what was in the past, the more frustrating that becomes. And in that moment, I realized it was my greatest breakthrough. And I actually took responsibility for where I was and who I was, and stopped blaming the outside world, stopped blaming everything outside of me. And I started to realize and understand that if we want to change anything on our external world, we have to change the energy of who we are. It's an inside job. All this sort of give you an idea like, oh, I'm going to get a new job, I'm going to move somewhere else, it's going to be a fresh start. It's never a fresh start unless you change the person that you are from the inside, because it's like a honeymoon period in a relationship, isn't it? Within a few weeks or a couple of months, the best behavior comes away. You bring around your shopping trolley full of all your baggage and emotions and say, oh, did I not tell you about this bit? And then you're just back to who you were, you know what I mean? It's like that honeymoon period ends, and then the true you prevails. So for me, that was a monumental part of my life where it was an epiphany. And if I had to define that in a statement, it was pain screams the loudest when it's dying. But it was the birth of something new. But in those moments with a lot of people, when the pain is screaming, you just want to turn around and give it a hug and quieten the noise, don't you? But that's not the solution.
Do you think a lot of entrepreneurs and business people seek comfort in chaos, which is why they try and keep themselves so busy, almost as how you were probably with the military? They try and do that in their professional careers because they're trying to run away from pain, trauma, discomfort, not feeling good enough, massive insecurity, the list kind of goes on.
I do think, it's not the same for everyone, but I do think it can be a distraction. I think I see a lot of people, that all this, you've got to hustle, got to grind constantly. And I just sometimes question that. I think it is important to be extreme, successful. And in this society, because it's been created that way, money buys you freedom, doesn't it? So almost like, this might be a bit far, but I almost feel like sometimes we live, especially in the UK, you live in an open prison. You just got to do your best to make your cell better than someone else's. So really, I think, but when it goes back to the individual, I think there is that, there can be a lot of trauma and a lot of stuff that you're dealing with, and you're using that sort of entrepreneurial sort of drive just to be the distraction. And the simple question to that is, are you needing anything outside of you to make you feel complete? And if you do, then there's something inside of you that needs addressing. Now, I'm not saying you can't have all the nice things and everything else, but if you need that for this external gratification of who you are, you need to address that.
And I think I've personally been through that loop. And then the problem then comes when you get the fucking Ferrari supercar, whatever thing is you want, you're like, I feel exactly the same as I did when I didn't have anything. And that's where people, I think, then need to go through that identity shift of realizing it's not necessarily getting all the shiny stuff, it's who you become in the process. And then also the confidence and self-satisfaction that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why the people, they get the nice car, within a few weeks they want the next one up. They want the shiny. I've got someone I know that, they've got the best car, and then they've got, very, very soon that the shine goes off, they want the next one. And you're never happy. And I think it comes back as well to this thing, if you're driven solely by money, you're never going to get to your destination. And I'm not saying life is about a destination, because we should always be continuously evolving. I think that's important. But you will always, my life was driven by money at some point, only because I never had any. And when I say that, one of the big reasons I left the Special Forces, because you couldn't earn any money. I just didn't understand how you're supposed to live on that cash.
How much do you earn, if I'm asking?
Well, I mean, this was a long time ago. I left in 2000, but I was like 1,500 quid a month.
Fucking hell.
I mean, what the fuck can you do with that? That's just ridiculous. And I just couldn't understand. How am I supposed to buy champagne and meet chicks? Which I was doing anyway. I don't know how I was doing it. Probably credit cards and all sorts of stuff. From the outside looking in, people were going, what the fuck? Is he dealing drugs or something? But, I was skinned. I was absolutely skinned. I was literally living a champagne lifestyle on a not even a beer budget, on a water budget. But, it's pathetic. And so anyway, when I left, I was like, I just wanted to earn money. And then I ended up going to Iraq as a mercenary, and I was earning shitloads, but I still didn't have any money, because I was still in that mindset of lack. So everything I did have, I just got rid of as quickly as possible. And it's, your mind is always looking to your emotional state to define the future. Do you know what I mean? So if your emotion, it doesn't matter how much, you can fucking do as much manifestation, goal setting as you want. You can even buy yourself a spiritual hat with feathers in, or whatever you want to do, have a Mind Valley subscription and all this shit. But if your nervous system is stating something very different to the outside, you're never gonna achieve anything. So, and this is what I'm starting to understand. I mean, I'm not the proven product yet. I'm still a work in progress. I always will be. But the thing is, I'm starting to realize that, you have to have this coherence. And you must know this, Charlie. I mean, you've obviously done exceptionally well throughout your career, but, you've got to get that. Once you can get your brain and your heart in coherence, which is your nervous system and your mind, then it's almost puts you in the state from an operating system that says it's safe to create. But if you're going around in survival and your state is survival, you'll never create. You'll never create.
And that's why, for me, I don't know if this is the right way to kind of talk about yourself, but I try and manipulate myself into certain states. Like start every day, I'll sit there for like 10, 15 minutes with nothing and just think. And then I'll just write, okay, what do I need to do today? What's my mind, whatever. And that's me kind of living intentionally in terms of every single day, kind of like trying to reset. Because I think the problem is a lot of people are just drifting and they're being reactive based upon everything. And the way I've always tried to think is, I want to kind of bend the world to my will of like what I want to do, rather than get pushed around by it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that you've just talked about there is something that I push to everyone, which people rarely do. Stillness, a bit of stillness at a point in your day. Usually the morning is best before things start to compound. But what do people do? They go to bed looking at the screen of the phone. The first thing they do after the alarm goes off is they look at their screen. And then straight away, if they've got the news app and all crap like that, then, they're into that doom and gloom and misery of something quite negative. So rarely do people actually give themselves any stillness. And like, we're in Dubai at the moment. I'm not saying Dubai is any different, but I do see a lot of people out exercising. And I just can't understand, you've got ladies taking their kids out in the morning. The beauty of the morning, especially this time of year, when you should be taking everything in, and you've got one hand on the pram and one hand on the phone. And I'm like, oh my God, give yourself a break. People running, and I can't run with anything in my hands. I've got to have that freedom anyway. But to have your phone and just be that consumed, to sit in a gym, right, on the leg press, and you're doing this with your, and you're like, I just can't get that. And it's going on to the likes of Dr. Bruce Lipton, who is I massively look up to Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's like when you hold a thought in your head for 17 seconds thereabouts, it starts to release complementary medicine into your body, and that creates emotions. And it was also proved, I don't know if you heard about this experiment where they got these women in Mexico that do all the housekeeping, and they go through these motels and do about 50 beds and do the room. You imagine how much exercise that is. So what they did with these ladies, they assigned purpose to them doing that exercise every day and got them to think that every time they did each room, it was like a workout. Their bodies started changing because they assigned a different purpose to the activity that they were doing. They started building muscles, they started getting trimmer. And that was that theory in motion. But you imagine, so you're sat there with your phone, you're on a leg press machine. You imagine what that's doing. You're not assigning purpose. And this is all like when I'll train in the gym and stuff. If I'm training chest, I'll focus my mind onto the actual muscle group. And this is people are so distracted. And this is causing so much of an issue these days. 5 to 9 bits of information at any one time when we're not stressed, 1 to 2 when we are stressed. And the majority of people are waking up in the morning, looking at the phone, totally distracted. And straight away, if you'll get straight into Instagram, you tell your mind, your operating system, that we're available for distraction. And then all day long, you're distracted. And this world has been absolutely engineered to make sure you're distracted, because the more you're distracted, you can't create anything. So I think, what you're doing there, people need to take, a lesson there to do that. And that sweet spot, that silence is absolutely where all the information is.
One of the best things I also find is if my headspace is not in the greatest period of time, I lean into that more. So I remember the start of this year as a phase, I was getting up at 4:30 every day and I'd read for an hour. Something with self-development, wouldn't look at anything else, like no phones, no bullshit. I would literally get up superly fucking early, read on my own. That's my own time to try and digest my thoughts and then do that kind of exercise again. I think that's where I think if people do have mental health issues or you're kind of declining, you need to lean into trying to fix it harder. Whereas I think what most people do is they tend to go more off of the rails.
Yeah, but you'll agree with that. Those moments where you do feel like that, it doesn't want you to do that activity, does it? But that's when the growth happens. And that's what people have got to look at. In the moment of absolute resistance, you've got to see that as a gift. It's an opportunity to upgrade. You know what I mean? Instead of allowing that to happen, because the more we allow that, what happens is basically you then build a wall on the inside, and before you know it, you're so restricted, you don't do anything. And this is what I did, when I went through my mental health. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to do anything different. I didn't want to upset the status quo. I was in such a survival moment. It's almost like you imagine you're in a survival situation. You imagine the analogy, I don't know if it's an analogy or a metaphor. I didn't finish my schooling years, but anyway, you crash land from a boat onto a desert island, right? You're in this survival moment. You imagine the scenario, you're here and you will not upset the status quo. You don't want to push it. You want to, just don't upset anything. Just make sure we survive. And then just over the mountain, there's a fucking resort. You know what I mean? But you won't actually go the extra miles to go and have a look for it. And this is how people are. Another sort of thing I think about is this is how they've got people right at the moment. I don't want to go into conspiracy too much, but this is how, all right, but this is how they've got people at the moment, right? You imagine you're on a beautiful ship and you're going off to a beautiful destination. You're so excited about going to that destination. You're falling like, when I get there, I'm going to kick back and do this, do that. It's going to be amazing. But all of a sudden, you're so far out to sea, you can't go back. But you hear across the tannoy that the ship is sinking. And you must, all hands on deck. We've got to go down into the bottom of the ship and we've got to all get together and we've got to make sure this ship doesn't sink, otherwise we're going to die. So everyone goes down, they're trying to fix the hole. That's how they've got people in the UK at the moment, or across Europe. Everyone's down fixing the hole. Haven't got a vision about anything else, getting to any other destination. We're caught in that survival sort of mechanism, and we're so scared of putting a step outside of that. And it's such a shame. But you can have a choice. Forget the environment. We did this thing it comes from the special forces. It's called 1 meter square. And it's almost like you draw a 1 meter square box around yourself. You switch off the external environment. You focus on that environment, your 1 meter square. You decide who comes in the 1 meter square. That's your energy. That's your space. It's almost like, if the distance is almost a hand away from you. But that 1 meter square, you just focus on that. Don't allow the external world, things you can't control, to come into that square. And it's like when you get a group, like if you imagine a special forces team all together, all working within their 1 meter square, but working together, that's an extremely powerful thing. there's no point worrying about the environment. There's no point worrying about all the things that could possibly go wrong. There's no point worrying about having all these fears and phobias and everything else. Just focus on that environment and keep on moving forward. And, you know, even if you are in a bad place, it's so important to bring it back to that, but keep momentum. We are water, and water stagnates, right, if it stands still for too long. So we just got to keep moving forward and always make sure we're going against the grain and there's something bigger, always something bigger.
Do you have a process you use in terms of that? You mentioned trying to find something bigger. So something, I don't know, I've always kind of had this thought process that I kind of personally evolve every 3 years into like the next version of me. And I'm constantly already thinking, okay, like I'm 36 in 2 weeks, whatever. Who am I going to be when I'm 39? Who am I going to be 3 years like that? And that constant evolution. Do you have a process in terms of how you think like that?
When you say 3 years, I'm just intrigued about that. Is that something you've designed? Have you found that
it's just been like the natural and instinctively, because it's like, it's enough time for a big change. And I was thinking about it again this morning because it's a 4-year anniversary of my partner today. And I moved to Dubai roughly 4 years ago. And I was like, a lot has changed in that period of time. So it kind of gave me a thing to think about of like, okay, a huge amount has changed in the last 3 to 4 years. And I think it's a significant enough amount of time to completely change your life. Whereas I think what most people do is they're trying to think about, okay, what am I going to do the next week and month? They might think about the next year, but not thinking like 3 to 5 years ahead, which is why they're not necessarily living intentionally on a longer term horizon.
But don't you find that people tend to be static? And this again goes back to that survival mechanism. It's like not wanting to shift. Once you're sort of safe, the mind wants to do what it did yesterday and the day before and the day before that, because as far as your mind is concerned, it's kept you alive until today. It doesn't give a fuck if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's kept you alive until today. So let's keep repeating that pattern. So when I was trapped in that, right, I was trapped in that, and I was drinking heavily. I was taking drugs. I was like in a fucking terrible place. But my mind knew I was doing it yesterday and the day before, and I wasn't dead. So keep doing it. And even the path moving forward, right, I knew exactly what I had to do. I'd stop drinking, I'd start looking after myself, which I eventually did. But my that was uncharted territory. So the mind's going, no, I can't predict that. I can predict what you've been doing for the past 2 years or whatever. So this is where people are. They're caught in yesterday.
And this is where I'd say I can think about this a lot from a business perspective. You need to change your internal belief system. So I was going to give you an example. If to make 10 to 50K a month or however much you want to make, when you see behind the curtain of how things really work, you're like, okay, for me to initially be successful, just go all guns blazing, I'll do absolutely everything and just take every opportunity that comes. But then you suddenly realize when you have more success behind you, the exact behavior that got you to the point you're at is the exact behavior that's then going to stop you going to the next level. Because if you then chase every opportunity, you're constantly fucking distracted and you're also trying to do too much yourself, which then actually almost inverting that and doing the opposite of, okay, pick the highest opportunity thing, just do that to the tilt, and then try and build team and systems to then help you do more of that thing and say no to everything else.
Yeah, I think that's like, I've seen a post of yours talking about finding your exact niche and not, because you're diluting your energy, right? Otherwise, and this is where I got it wrong for so many years, you know, because I was on the TV and there was this massive opportunity. It was like, had this massive FOMO. So it was like, oh, come on. And I'm we all are extremely creative, right? And I love the creative part. I don't like the spreadsheets and all that shit.
Yeah, me either. I just want to make ideas and just go for it,
exactly. So for me, and also my wife Laura, who's my business partner as well, but we used to get into this sort of creative I loved it, the creative part. Oh, I've got to do the paperwork. Oh. And then all of a sudden another opportunity. Oh, let's build something new. You know what I mean? So we ended up with like all this stuff, and we were so diluted that, and I don't regret anything because I'm the happiest I've ever been today. And if that's based on what I've done in the past, then I've got no regrets at all. But one thing I'll say is now that we've come to Dubai, we've started to like really coming out from this massive level and really started to come into a really focused sort of offering, which I think is almost like this is what we started before I got the tap on the shoulder to go on the TV show, which changed everything. But it's almost like the model we had then is almost like it's done full circle.
Yeah.
And you were talking about your 3 years, mine's 10.
Okay.
Which might be a bit of a long span, but it's been a really interesting. Everything happens and it's not something I've gone, well, 10 years I need to change, but everything is 10 years. And I don't know whether there's any significance in this, but it's like I was 10 years old when I had my first experience. Like that chimp attack at 10 years old was the first moment I can remember. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like that 10-year marker, and then everything happens in 10 years. Like I like went across to Australia for 10 years, and it was like after that 10 years, I then came back to the UK. I was in the UK for 10 years, and then 10-year mark, we then came to Dubai. You know, it's always the 10 years. So I don't know what that is or why it is, but I'd like to like bring that down by at least 50% because I'm not waiting 10 years.
Well, I think Dubai will naturally do that for you. So I think the biggest thing that, like, even if it's from a business perspective, you change, people want to do things by end of week, you do it at end of day, you're then like 7xing the speed in terms of you can kind of go through stuff in life. So I think, me personally, one of the reasons I've done quite a lot in a short period of time is I've always been very quick to implement and execute. But I said to you in terms of like the belief system of like, I now have to kind of undo that, because what was starting to happen is I was trying to do some things too quickly that I shouldn't be doing, that were then causing other problems. So I think people need to have that self-awareness and to be self-critical, to realize sometimes, okay, like this has got me to X point in my life, but then to get to the next level, or to get to where I want to be, it might not necessarily be the next level. You're going to probably have to have sometimes type of like belief system shift.
Yeah, no, 100%, because it doesn't matter where you're at. You know, it's like, because a lot of the work I do in the past, it's like some people think, oh, well, it's for people with mental health problems. I've really not tried to avoid it, but I naturally got asked in a lot I was doing a lot of corporate talks. It was my main business really in the UK. But, you know, I used to get asked a lot to go and do mental health stuff. And I was like, I think the more we focus on anything, the bigger it becomes. The more we focus on anything, we feed it, right? So, and I think this is the issue at the moment, right? If we're going to focus on mental health, it's the same with this ADHD rubbish as well at the moment. If we're going to focus on something, we're going to make it bigger. So everyone banging on about mental health issues. Listen, every single person on this planet can identify with some mental health issues. You know what I mean? Before you know, we've created a society where everyone's going, oh, I've got ADHD, I've got this, and they're blaming something for their lack of performance. You know, they're defined by the chaos of the past or their trauma and everything else. And this is why I've kind of steered away from the mental health thing, because the answer, as far as I'm concerned, is your mental wealth. You know, it's how are you investing in yourselves? Are you drinking? You know, people that come to me and say, oh, I've got real issues at the moment, I really need to do something about it. I always ask, how much you're drinking? How much alcohol are you consuming? And if they're consuming a lot of alcohol and stuff, well, you've got to move that out the way. You can't come moaning about stuff where your system is screaming for you to stop something.
And that's a choice.
And that's a choice. You know, people also moaning about finances and everything. Oh, I can't afford to do that. It's 47 quid to change your life. I can't afford that. So how much is your vape? How much is your Netflix? How much is your phone? But they're not prepared to surrender and sacrifice all that stuff, are they? But, you know, you can pay 47 quid or whatever, or do something which is going to change the trajectory, the destiny of your life. And people just aren't prepared to do that. And why is that? I just can't get my head. You know, when I went back to the UK 2014, I had nothing, but I had this internal drive to start something, which was Breakpoint. You know, I had this idea about business. I had no idea I was going to be on TV. No idea. I basically got myself back to the UK, and I was spending everything, what little I did have, on self-development. You know, it was a new thing for me. And Foxy off the TV show who I was in the Special Forces with, he says it quite well. He says, like, the old Ollie, the Ollie he used to know back in the day, would kick the shit out of the new Ollie. You know, because I'm like, all spiritual and all this and blah, blah, blah now.
Or you're fucking pussy, yeah.
Yeah. So, but if I could have never predicted me being me now. You know, I'd just said, no fucking chance would I be me now if I could have looked forward.
Why do you think that is?
Because I was being stereotypical.
There's the ego around that.
Because the ego around being, oh, well, I'm a man and this, you know, and that at the end of the day, you know, this is the problem. You know, people talk about toxic masculinity, which is really the lack of true masculinity in this day and age. People think like being a man is like who's staying in the pub all night, snorting a bag of Coke, drinking loads of beer and having a fight. It's not. You know, I always say, if you want to know what a true man is, right, ask a woman what she wants. Because the pretty boy that gets coked out his head, this might be a short, quick fix, you know, initially, the attractiveness, but it dies very quickly. Women don't want that. They want someone that's driven. They want someone who's got a plan. They want someone who's confident. They want someone that's going to protect him, not be lost down the pub when they can't even protect your kids because you can't even drive home if something happens. And this is where we've got it all wrong. Men out there just don't know what it means to be a man. And, you know, when you say this to people, it's like, there's the law of polarity in this life, right? There's masculine, feminine, there's hot, there's cold, there's hate, there's love, all this stuff. You've got to identify with your masculine and your feminine. You say that to some men and they think being a man is wearing a man bag and fucking a pink shirt. It's not that. You know what I mean? That is not identifying with your feminine energies. It is, being, aligning with your feminine energy is the fact that you are prepared to say to your mate, I need a bit of help with this, mate. I'm suffering with, I've got a lot going on here. Can we have a chat? It might be the fact that I'm really struggling financially. Can you give me some advice? It might be the fact that you need help in all kinds of things, and being open to a bit of wisdom, being open to a bit of self-development work. I go to these events like Joe Dispenza and like 4,000 people in Spain to this event. I looked around, there's like 5% men.
Really?
Yeah, 5%. I'm like, where are the men? I feel like saying, where are the men? Women, grab your men and bring them along to these events. And it's like, they think by doing that kind of stuff that they're saying that they're weak.
So this is also what is so fascinating. I obviously coach a lot of young men, and the biggest reason men aren't successful is the combination of like arrogance and ignorance and like ego all kind of wrapped up into one. They think they know everything. They're not willing to be open-minded. And for me, my life really changed the first time I got in really good shape and I got someone to coach me. I was like, well, this was really fucking easy. So it's like, okay, what else can I apply the same methodology to? It's like, okay, if I want to learn stuff for business, if I just find someone who's done the thing that I want to do, pay them, I just do what they've tell and they work. And that's ultimately, I think, where people are have their guard up too much to be kind of be open-minded. And like my favorite saying is that a genius doesn't have great answers, he asks great questions.
That's a great comment. I've stolen that, by the way.
Yeah, it's good. But it's good because your life will also be defined by the questions you ask yourself, which is why I spend a lot of time in the morning thinking like, okay, where's my life going? What do I need to focus on? Where am I maybe letting myself down? Where can I improve? And even with being self-critical, which you have to be, in my opinion, you can then push yourself to then try and improve.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing is, it is that ego that's stepping in the way. And I always look at it, right? Look at the hierarchy of a village, right? An old tribal village. Look at the hierarchy, and society is absolutely broken this model, by the way. But the hierarchy of a village is the young men are for fighting and fucking, right? Populate the village and also protect it. When you get into sort of older, more mature level, into your 30, 35, 40s and all that, it's your job to manage and build the village.
That.
Do you want me to say that a different way? So
yeah, can we say 37 plus?
37, or do you want me to say the fighting and fucking?
Yeah, I can be in that as well, yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to edit that?
No, it's fine.
The fighting and fucking bit. And then, sort of 30, 35 plus, if you say that age, then your job is then to manage that village, make sure it's built properly and everything else. The elders are there for the wisdom, and the elders look after the younger so that they can educate the younger generation coming forward. But actually, the elders actually learn from the younger as well. And it's this revolving cycle of education and building something amazing. And you talk about like young men as well. They're too full of sexual energy. And by the time, this is why a lot of people, when they get sort of to around that 40-year-old mark, that sexual energy starts turning into focusing on business. And this is why a lot of people make their money sort of once they've got that sexual energy out the way, and they stop chasing every bit of skirt that they can. And a lot of people get lost in that. Some people that are still trapped in that. But, it's like once that's gone, that energy gets redirected and actually starting to build something credible. And that's where I think like a lot of young men, they've got all this ego, they've got this sexual energy, it's all tensed up and, they're like a coiled spring. And I certainly was as well. And then I was so addicted to porn, so addicted to drinking, drugs, going out, constantly going out, needing that like a ridiculous amount. That whole got in the way of who I was. And it wasn't until I got that stuff out of the way that I started to live. And I started to understand that my life started changing when I started to do what I wanted instead of what I thought was expected.
So you mentioned there what is expected. I think one of the things that men and people generally struggle with is the expectations of people closest to them. So like I would have had that a lot when I was younger in terms of, I can give you an example. When I first started posting fitness content in 2016, people were like, who the fuck is this guy? Who does he think he is? Why is he posting photos of himself in the gym? I also had, I was married at the time. I also had like a proper job. So like, why is he posting topless photos of himself on the internet? Blah, 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 blah. The list kind of goes on. I think.
Then.
Yeah. And it's, the world's a mirror, not a window. And I think that's where it's people's own insecurity comes out. But I also think a lot of people's lives and their dreams go to die at that point because other people's expectations for them stop them achieving what they want.
You know, I think that's a really interesting observation. It's like, you know what, I want to bring this up, right? Because it's, I just put on I've not really done sort of like shirt off and all that before, but I've just done this transformation, which has been incredible for me. I've lost 10 kilos in 6 weeks. And so working with the gym that I was working with, Raw in Dubai, I did the transformation picture for them. You know, it's the whole thing we're working with them. And I find it so interesting, the comments I've got from that, which is similar tone to, you know, the people on there. And I always look at these people, and you've always got to, because we are an interesting mechanism, right? I mean, let me tell you back to this story. When I bought out I think it was my 4th book at that time, and it was called How to Survive Almost Anything. It was a modern day survival Bible. And I'm not that great when it comes to social media. You know, I take a bit of a kick up the arse to actually get stuff moving. My wife is always pushing me to do stuff. Anyway, she said, your book's coming out. You need to do some stuff on social media, on Instagram. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. So anyway, it was a hot day, believe it or not, in the UK. And I had some shorts on. There's a reason I'm telling you that bit. I had a pair of shorts on. I was in the garden. I said, let's go and get the book. I'll do it right now then. She said, right. So she started filming me. I had this book and I was like, right, everyone, my new book comes out. You can get it on pre-order. Blah, blah, blah. It's all about this and all about that. And, you know, make sure you get it today. Follow the link, da, da, da. Anyway, posted it. Half an hour later, she came up to me. She said, have you seen your post? Anyway, opened the post. Fucking loads of likes. Loads of likes. She said, go through the comments. And I was going through the comments and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. You know, loads of love, loads of ego stroking. And I was like, oh, your last book was great, all this. And da-da-da. And I was like, oh, this is so lovely. Oh, this is amazing. Going through all the comments. And then all of a sudden got to this one comment and my fucking heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. My feet, like I was trembling. And she's like, what's the matter? She said, I was like, and this hand of doom wanted to come out. It was like so close because I wanted to react. And she said, what's it say? She said, I said, look, this one here. And it said, Ollie, have you forgot to do leg day? And I laugh about it now because my whole world just shattered in that moment. And like, I just wanted to retaliate. I had this internal fire and we've all been there, right? You see, you know, and I was about to like start. She like grabbed my hand. It was a monumental moment. She's like, wait, 24 hours. And I was like, no, I must retaliate. And then for the next, it must have been 5 or 6 hours, I was just in this zone where I was coming up with all these scenarios in my head. Oh, I could say that. I could say this. I could say, oh, I should say that. And wanting to react, but I've got to wait. And then I thought, what the fuck are you doing? And this is what we do, right? Don't we? You can have the best amount, you know, so many great things going on. And straight away, one little thing that knocks your ego, you know what I mean? And you are then focused on that. And this is where people need to understand the mechanism of how we're wired, right? We are wired to look for the problem. And I think when that isn't engaged, we get bogged down with the white noise bullshit stuff. You know, the mechanism is looking for the problem all the time. And that's the operating system. You go back to your primal days, it's not looking for all the, you know, cavemen didn't come out their caves and go, right, and today I'm going to get around, do a bit of networking, see what's going on. I'm going to go down to Bob's cave down there. We're going to have a bit of a barbecue and then, you know, and then see what business connections I can make. They're thinking, what the fuck is going to kill me, right? You know what I mean? We're still of that mechanism. We are still there. So we're always trying to identify the problem. It's like when you see a beautiful car, right? Your brain only identifies that thing is beautiful when you can't find a flaw. You know what I mean? As soon as you see a scratch or you see something that's not right about that car, you'll go, hey, shit. You know, have you ever had those mates that actually, they look like they've got everything. And then all of a sudden they've got this beautiful girl that you're like, whoa, look at that. 2 weeks later, he's ditched her. You're like, what the fuck have you just done? Why, how come you're not with her? She had a funny big toe. You're like, what? What the fuck? But the thing is, the brain is always looking for something. You know what I mean? It's always looking for the problem. And I think when we start to understand and appreciate this system, because I came back 2014, I started to think, how is this how does this work? Because we're not given a book, right? You're not born and you're given a Haynes manual. Do you remember what a Haynes manual is? I know you're a bit younger than me, Charlie, but you used to get like a Haynes manual, like if you were lucky enough to have your parents buy you a car or anything, you used to get the car, you used to get a Haynes manual. You can't do it now because it's too technical. And what you could do basically with that book, something was going wrong with the car, something wasn't right. So you could get that book, you could do a diagnosis, you could find out what was going wrong. You could then get down to Halfords or wherever, your car mechanic store was. You could buy all the bits, you could go back, follow the instructions, and you could get that car purring like a pussycat. And then you stood next to it thinking, I'm a fucking legend, look at me, I fixed my car. We don't get that system, do we? We don't get the Haynes manual. We're controlled by our environment. We're controlled by the people around us, our schooling, all the media shit that's coming in, that's programming us. And that becomes our coding of who we are. And the bottom line for me is once I started to understand this, I started to understand the operating system and really start to appreciate the operating system and understand why, you've got to work with your strengths and your weaknesses to really get that equilibrium. And instead of the majority of people are always just faking perfection. I mean, social media is, is not going to show the journey, is it? Of all that. I mean, to get where you've got, was it easy?
No. And even I think I posted about this yesterday, I made on LinkedIn. It's like, we had our best month ever last month. It's probably been one of the most challenging months of my life, but no one sees that on the outside. No. So it's like, just had a newborn child, got all this other shit going on. We had a massive event, had multiple nights. I slept 3 hours. So it's like people only see one side of the coin. They don't really see the other side. And I think I try and also frame things like that of this is the life you kind of wish for. And this is, you've got what you were working towards and you now just have to rise to the challenges that come with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, do you actually get a fair bit of hate?
Yeah, loads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so much now. It comes in phases.
Not so much. Would you call it hate or
it comes in phases and waves. And I would say there was a period last year where I had it from multiple competitors at the same time. And I think I've always had a high amount of kind of fuck you energy, and it just kind of gave me an even lot more of that. But actually, the biggest thing I would say having a daughter has changed for me is that I get less triggered by things. Yeah. I don't know why, but the amount of things I just fuck it, I don't care.
And that's whatever. The attitude you got to take. And you don't know why that is. It's just since
I don't know. As soon as we had the child, I was like, for me, I'm like, well, fuck him anyway. And I remember, I don't know if you know a guy.
First child?
Yeah. I don't know if you know a guy called Andy Elliott. I remember I saw him in the gym here in Dubai, and he gets fucking.
Is he American?
Yeah. Bald guy. He gets abused by everyone. Yeah. And I saw him in the gym, and someone had made a video about me this day, and I was like, Andy, what do you do with these fucking people who just create shit and just have a pop at you for no reason? He's like, fuck him. He's just use them as fuel and just lean into it. And I was like, fair enough.
You've got to actually understand that, Facebook actually loves a bit of conflict. You know what I mean? So it's like Laura, my wife does a lot of this stuff on Instagram and, looks at the comments. I'm usually just on transmit and not receive. Yeah. But, she actually fires them up a bit. You know what I mean? And then you get everyone else talking. Yeah. Facebook loves it. It creates the algorithm or whatever. I don't know the technical reason for it, but they love that. So they're actually doing you a favor, in some respects. But I did actually mention before, I didn't actually say what it was. I had the shirtless photo the other day, the transformation pictures, and someone actually went on there and their comment was there. I'm still trying to work it out. And their comment was that for someone that talks a lot about mental health and positivity, what you've just done is just derailed everything you're all about. I was like, what? And actually, so many people went back and started going, what are you talking about? And it was like, he was telling me that I am the issue with, I typify the issue with what's wrong with mental health and all this stuff. And I was like, I just couldn't get my head around it. And I was like, so someone that went through his own battles, mental health issues and everything else, and then has actually got himself to a really good place and then has done a physical transformation at 55 to really get people to understand that you are your energy, not your age. And then to put that on social media, he was basically saying that it would have a detrimental effect on people with mental health issues. So what they're basically saying is that you shouldn't be posting about your success. You should be working towards the victim mentality and not. I just find it. What do you think about that?
Misery loves company. And I also think that embodies the UK and Europe as a whole at the moment. And if you look at the opposite of places like the United States or Dubai and the UAE, is success also loves company. And I interviewed someone yesterday and I said it to him, I was like, do you know the easiest way to become a winner is join a winning team?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in terms of like the biggest thing that's going to define you is the environment you surround yourself with. And I think the problem is that some people will come to somewhere like Dubai and they'll see people with this fucking dude down my road who has maybe 9 supercars. I'm like, and they've got like the single number plate things that are like $2 million each.
Worth
I was
more
like,
than a car.
yeah. So I'm like, well, this is fucking retarded. And some people will be like, that's ridiculous. Why does he have? For me, I'm like, fair play. That's really inspirational. And I want to find out who the guy is.
Yeah.
Because that for me proves it's possible. And what you've done at your age is you've proved it's possible to be in great shape. And you've also gone to the World Championships for triathlon.
Which I, during this sort of process of 6-week transformation, I had already signed up for the T100, which is the Dubai. They were coming to Dubai. I thought it was actually a Dubai thing, but they do it all over the world. So anyway, the T100, and a friend of mine signed up for it. A few friends signed up for it. So I said, I'll do it as well. Anyway, funny because all those people that's got me to do it actually all pulled out. So I was doing it on my own anyway. I was like, and a part of me was going, oh, they're not doing it. I may as well just pull out of it. It's my first ever triathlon. Anyway, I got on it, and it was a 2K swim, then it was an 80K bike ride, then it's an 18K run. And it was a really interesting process for me because I thought at the start, right, and I'm not putting myself on a pedestal, but you think like, after what I've done and everything, even at the start before I did it, I was starting to think, I wonder what the cut-off time is, when you're going too long, when they pull you off. I was thinking... Negatively, yeah. Which, I'd not done it before, so I didn't know how... I'm okay at all those disciplines, but putting it all together is a different thing when you've got to do it continuously. So anyway, I went in there with that like that. And then honestly, when I was on that and I did the swim and I was like, passing a fair few people. Then I got onto the bike. I was like an animal, an absolute animal. I was overtaking so many people. And it was an interesting thing for me because I was getting so emotional. And I didn't know why it was. And it was almost like when I look back now, Charlie, I've started to think that I had created an identity that was keeping me from my potential. Does that make sense to you? Because I know it was almost like a sense of maybe resting on my laurels as well. It's like, and I just wonder, how many other people out there, is your identity actually holding you back? Bearing in mind the mechanism always wants to live smaller. It's like when we're challenged and everything else, it's almost like when you fail in business. Everyone wants to go smaller, right? But I've started thinking now, well, maybe that's a sign that you need to go bigger. You know what I mean? Just because you failed doesn't mean that you need to reduce. It means you need to increase, not reduce.
And there's a great book around that whole subject called 10X is easier than 2X. And basically the whole precipice of the book is if you're going to 10X something, you have to think completely differently, act completely differently than if you're going to 2X it. And I think the problem is most people aren't even trying to 2X things in their fucking life. They're trying to stay where they are, yet they're wondering why nothing changes. And I think that's where you have to try and take a dramatic change in your life in terms of the way you think, which then ultimately changes the way you act, to then ultimately change the outcome of where you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What do you think though is also, but I think we've already covered this though, you mentioned about, you change your belief system, because if your belief doesn't align, if your internal belief system doesn't align with what you're trying to achieve, do you think that can be built?
It's impossible. So I can give you a good business direct comparison happened to me recently. So there's a really good friend of mine, Jordan Lee, who's come on the podcast. His business makes $6 million a month. He spends $1.8 million on paid ads. And I was like, okay. So I was asking him some of the numbers they were doing in their business. And I was like, I just need to fucking spend more money on ads and hire more people. And then the last 2 months, we just doubled how much we spend. And I just fucking hired loads of people and our business grew really quick. So that was a belief system change. And why that changed is the law of exposure. I was exposed to someone who was ahead of me, who's like, no, dude, this is the numbers I'm doing. I was like, well, why can I not just do the same thing and just increase that? And then every other thing's kind of clicked into fact from there. Yeah. The problem is most people have a poor relationship with money. So if you look at a paid ads perspective, they're like, oh, I'm spending X amount a day. If they have a day where they don't make the money back straight away, it's like, oh, they go back into like retreat. Whereas the reality is you actually need to kind of, instead of retreating, think, okay, how am I going to figure this out? Because this other person I know has done it.
Yeah, no, 100. But then you start thinking, well, maybe it's me, don't you? You know what I mean? So, and it's a simple equation, isn't it? I mean, I've more recently just started heavily investing in ads. When I say heavy, it's not anything near what you just talked about there. But the thing is, it's like, if you're putting in a quid and you're getting £1.50, it's a simple equation. You just the more you spend, the more you're going to get. It's dead simple, isn't it? So it's really about just doing the maths, isn't it? But also for us, it's like going to that next level. It's something that we've got to do, because everyone around me is saying the same thing as you've said. You need to go high ticket. But the sort of jump, even when I'm talking to my wife about this, she's like, well, yeah, but our audience won't pay for that. I'm like, but it's not that audience that we're appealing to. That's the wrong audience.
And have you tried it?
No. Exactly.
So it's like you don't know till you try. And that's,
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So it's like this is also something I'd say to a lot of people, is like you make more offers, you make more money. So sometimes I just like make things up and see if I can try and sell them and it works. And I think that's where people need to probably be more outlandish. And I also think creative. And then if you think that people, particularly you see it in Dubai, people have a lot of money, people want to buy proximity necessarily. So people would want to pay to be around you and spend time with you. Same thing with me. And that's what people are willing to pay for and pay decent money for, because the upside for them, if they're a successful person, is exponential.
Yeah. Well, I think really coming to your environment, like we said before, is like really helps you expand, doesn't it? Because it's like I'm surrounded by people, the place is affluent. It's like back in the UK, you see a Lamborghini, you're like, oh wow, look at that. Here, you just say it's like
no one cares.
you don't even flinch. But I think it's been a massive change for us. We seem to be. One thing we did this year. Did you stay for the summer?
This is the first time I have done. I left for like 3 days to go to Las Vegas, and personally, I didn't think it was that bad.
Well, no one's here, which is great. So it's a breather, isn't it? But it's our first year in Dubai, and so we had to pivot as soon as we got here, because a lot of my business just disappeared because it was the corporate talks and everything else. And the reason for me actually leaving the UK is we were in Somerset. I had like a big farmhouse there in the middle of nowhere, disconnected from everyone, which I like to a certain degree, but I do think we were too remote. It's almost like a nice thing to be, I want to be remote, but I also want to have the choice when I want to connect and be around people. But we got to a point in our lives where we just sat there one day and we woke up and, we sat around the kitchen table where all decent conversations get done, of course. And, Laura said, I feel like I'm semi-retired. And I said, I know, I feel the same. And it's almost like we're in that comfort zone. And I just said to her, look, I want that hunger back. The hunger when I came back from bouncing all over the world, trying to find this external fix. I want that hunger back. I want my back against the wall. You know what I mean? Because when I came back in 2014, had nothing. I was taking advantage of every opportunity. And that's when the TV show miraculously appeared. And that's really was our motivation, a lot of motivation to come to Dubai. And, so we came out here, have had to pivot on the offering and everything else. And then for the summer, it was like, well, do we go away? And really financially, we couldn't feasibly do that. But, we did the one thing here, and that was it forced us into the office, which is not a natural environment for anyone and not me, and where we really put the work in, did loads of work and built the online courses and everything else. So it's really helped us to pivot, and I feel like we're on the right trajectory now. But yeah.
Now, I'm not going to sound like Stephen Bartlett, but I know a lot of people coming onto our podcast and who are not subscribing but still enjoying the content. If I have one small ask for you, it's please hit the subscribe button. It'll help us a lot. It's interesting you say that, because the biggest reason I see most people's businesses struggle is they are, particularly like younger fitness coaches, influencers, trainers, however you want to term it, their business starts to go a bit off the rails when they just start fucking traveling all the time. And ultimately, if you kind of remove every distraction other than just doing the thing, and you're kind of blinkered with your approach, okay, your business will grow. I think it's also been the same thing for me being here over the summer. There wasn't really a lot else to do other than like work and go to the gym. So it's like, okay, cool. We'll just film content, make ads, do all the stuff you need to do. And it's kind of just like Groundhog Day. And ultimately, to a certain point, it's not about doing different things. It's just about doing the same thing, but continuously trying to improve that over and over again. And I think that's the human brain, and also the way we're kind of distracted now, is we're constantly looking for different rather than the same thing, but trying to improve it.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because everyone wants to, it's like on social media and everything else, it's like people have got to understand nothing has been created or destroyed. Everything's already here. So just because you've come up with something doesn't mean you're the first person to say it. You know, you can put a different spin on it so it speaks to a different audience, but you know, you've not invented fire. And this is what everyone's looking to do, aren't they? You know, it's like, I can remember someone said, I did an interview some time ago, and it's like, so let's talk about this. And I said, well, what are your sort of keys? Well, you know, I was like talking about goals and that. And he said, oh, everyone's talking about that. And I was like, what do you mean everyone's talking about it? I said, well, can't you come up with something new? I said, well, you don't need to come up with something new. You just need to prove the model. But the thing is, there's so many people out there that want to be the disruptive person. Like if you said like meditation is the best thing you can do to change the blueprint of who you are, someone wants to go in there and say meditation doesn't work and I've got a process to show you, So it almost seems like social media is like full of people that just want to contradict the proven theory and method for success, because it attracts attention. And it's also the quick fix, isn't it? It's like all the people you talked about, Charlie, all these youngsters per se, you know, a lot of people driven by ego, they're pleasing the audience. So they want to be seen on their jet that's actually not taking off in business. You know, they hire the assets and everything else. You know, they want to fake everything to the audience to show that they're doing really well. It's like, you know, they get the website before they actually think about the business they're doing. They get the business. Oh, does anyone have business cards these days?
No, really. No, actually, someone gave me a business card the other day. Actually,
really, it's a retro.
Yeah, it was like some makes gold or something weird, but
yeah. So I mean, they're gone, but you know, it's like I can remember doing it myself. You know, I got the business card before I'd even got a website, and I was like, "Hey, look at me, I've got a business." You know what I mean? But it's people wanting to prove they're doing well, but they're not prepared to put in the work. And I think maybe do you feel that's a young thing or
yeah, I think that's just a societal thing. And I think the thing I try and think about is if you can just work really, really hard and manage to keep going without getting any gratification from it from externally, and you just do it for a long period of time, eventually you get good at it. And the reason I'm really good at marketing is because for 7-8 years all I focused on is just trying to learn how to market and sell stuff online. And if you just do a small amount every single day, it starts to stack up, and it's that force multiplier effect of, let's say you learn how to run paid ads, then you learn direct response marketing, then you learn how to sell, like you've then got superpower when you start putting all these things together. The problem is most people aren't willing to sit down and try and learn or invest in themselves to learn. And I've invested $500,000 plus at this point in terms of like self-education, mastermind mentors, whatever you want to call it, because I know particularly if you're younger, like I'm 30s now. So like if you're 21 or 25, you've got fucking 30, 40 years that you can benefit from this. And it's that compound effect of skills and experience is infinite.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What's your perspective on age?
Are you in what respect?
Are you
in prime?
Are you coming into your prime? Or
depends how you define prime. So if there's a kind of controversial book, I don't know if you read it, called The Rational Male, and it talks about
I'll be buying it
SMV, sexual market value, and men peak like 35 to 40 because your physical status, financial status, all these type of things, whereas women, it's like early 20s for fertility and beauty and all this type of stuff. I think that, in my opinion, men can now continue to keep improving for much longer, and I think you're a great case study of that in terms of what you've done athletically. And I saw something interesting. A guy who actually coaches me now said that people will live between 120 to 200 if you can last the next 5-10 years, if you have some financial resources and you have knowledge. And also if you think about how everyone wants to kind of get rich and wealthy, the compound effect of money and time is insane. So if you live 50 years longer and you create some wealth when you're younger, how that will grow for you forever is insane. But I think that the peak age for men is moving backwards. I think it's actually well beyond 30s now. I think it's, if anything,
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, like it's going back and back and back because 100 years ago, most men would die like early 30s. So it's constantly going back. And I think that sweet spot for men is just going to keep moving.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting one because I think that, you know, we mentioned this before, you know, it's almost like age is demonized in our society. And it's like when you look at the typical model, if you want to call it that, you know, once you've sort of done your service to the corporation, you know, they kind of don't want you living too long because you're draining the system. So it's almost also the fact, you know, it's like a lot of men, they get into the sort of more mature years, and this starts growing out here, you know what I mean? They can't see their feet. You know, they then kind of accept that they're going to go to the doctor because you get ill at a certain age, you know, thinking that we're ill. And it's like trying to turn that around and show people that, you know, age is, like I said before, it's like you are your energy, not your age, literally. And, you know, trying to get people to understand that you're coming in, they've defined it, haven't they, as a midlife crisis. But maybe it's something different. Maybe it's a breakthrough. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's like you start to like rediscover yourself, and like with all the, you know, when you get to that age, you kind of, the kids have kind of left and all that kind of thing. You can sort of get more clarity on stuff, what you want out of life. And I really think that people, you know, I just feel like so much in my prime now.
Well, I think that's because you've got the thing that I would have said as I was younger, as maybe an egotistical man thought was bullshit, was life experience. And I said that to you when you first came in today. It's like when you speak to people who are older than you, you know they've done a few more laps around the fucking moon than you have, and that they've seen things, and they have seen people make good decisions, bad decisions, can kind of give you some guidance on that. And I think that's why it also puts you in a good perspective if you're in your 50s or older and you're in great health physically and mentally. The world's kind of your oyster at that point, because I think the ability to kind of be peak performance for another 20, 30, 40, probably 50 years at this point is just going to keep going on with technology.
Well, there's less competition as well.
Yeah, but it's also true. And I also, people talk about, say in the health and fitness space, people are also paranoid about AI and AI replacing people.
I'd love to get your thoughts on this AI.
How
much of a difference have you seen in your business?
Massive. AI? So like the output in terms of what I can personally do is 50x. So we've reduced the amount of people we have. We can create more content. I can market more. It's easier than ever to scale a business online because of these things like superpowers and tools that you can use. It's like humans have always had tools we can use. We first got the computer, we got the internet. Like that was a new thing that was changing the world. We just have a new, more powerful thing. What people don't understand, that they think AI is going to replace everyone from, say, coaching and consulting, is that AI is going to make people more money and it's going to save them a lot of time. So if you think of what people want, is health, wealth, relationships. So they've got money and they've got time. They're going to want to focus on their health and their relationships, which means the demand for higher level coaching is going to increase because people can have the time and the money to invest into it.
Do you also think it will amplify the people that are the authentic?
100%. So if you look at AI content is going to wipe the internet, what will happen is that the people who have a brand, which is why it's so important for people to build a personal brand right now, will have more clout and authority, because they will, even if that video of you or me is AI, they'll know that is that person. So they will buy into it, rather than like the stuff you see online right now. And it's like, I know that's not a real person. So the trust is going down. But with that, you also have to think about human psychology of why then people will like long form content like podcasts. It's because this is a real conversation with real people and it's not manipulated as such.
Right, interesting.
I don't know if you see it from a different perspective.
No, absolutely. I just feel that, you know, it's like, because there will be so many overnight experts, you know, people will be looking a little bit beyond the face of who they are to make sure they've got the depth and credibility. I mean, you know, you got to really look in, you know, if someone was to want you as a mentor, right, business wise, then obviously you've got the credibility of what you've built to actually back that up. You know, it's similar to myself as well. And I just feel that those people will seek those people, you know, that they want the real story from someone who's actually done what they're, I mean, I see so many coaches, especially when it comes to mindset stuff, when it comes to business stuff, and they're only making money. They're making money from telling people how to make money, which is just, it's creating their wealth. They've got no credibility. It's like someone being in business saying, I've built a massive business, when they haven't built anything. They've built fuck all. But what they have built is a marketing tool to extract money off people talking bullshit. It's just to find so much in that. And I think people don't even look past that. You know, I'd want to know, if you were going to say to me, I'm going to give, you know, it's X amount for coaching, business coaching, I'd want to know what you've done. I want to see that you've got the credibility to actually prove what you're talking about. And I think it's the same with everything, isn't it? When it comes to health, fitness, when it comes to, you know, you're not going to go to someone that looks totally out of shape and want to get the fucking physical, you know, like a transformation program off them. So I just feel that I see AI as a positive because I really think it's going to amplify those people, and it's going to get rid of. I feel over time, initially, there's going to be this, kind of everyone's bamboozled by AI, but over a period of time, I think the real people are going to start standing out. And also the fact I do feel that people are going to really be hungry for the human experience, events and stuff.
100%. Well, community, like I said that to you earlier, because people want to be around other people. And everything kind of goes in cycles. So I even saw this with, I personally fucking hate Instagram Reels and anything that's kind of, whereas I like carousels, images, like long form captions so people can read. And what's happening is it's starting to go back to that because people kind of get bored of a certain thing and then things will change in terms of cycles. But I think with the AI perspective, people want more raw, authentic, slightly shitter filmed videos rather than like the perfect scripted fucking B-rolled, edited to death content that kind of gets hammered in front of people, because ultimately people buy from people who are similar to them. And if people aren't showing the real authentic version of them, then people won't buy for them. And it's another saying I really like is that sometimes it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And if you've achieved a lot of things like which you have, you don't really need to say a lot at that point because people know that, and that's why they will come to you because you're an authority. So people say like, how do you become successful in business mindset, whatever? It's like, if you actually do something and you do it for a long period of time, people will just start to gravitate to you.
Yeah, good.
From the physical aspect of what you're doing now from the triathlete stuff, is that something you'd planned to go into or just kind of evolved?
No, it kind of fell into it. I did the first triathlon. I didn't finish that story before, but I did that first triathlon and I felt amazing on the bike and everything else. And I knew I was doing a good time. And then I got through, did the run. The run was pretty horrendous, but I got through. And then at the end, it's actually, after I left the event, I saw someone there that I knew, an ex-military lad, special forces guy from the UK. And he sent me a message afterwards. He said, "Do you realise you've qualified for the World Triathlon Championships?" So I was like, what? The last thing I wanted to do was another triathlon at that stage. I was like, you're kidding me. First, initially, I was thinking, I ain't doing it. It's in a couple of weeks, trying to find excuses. And then I thought, wow, this is pretty incredible. And I did think in my head, right, you imagine the story, like, I was telling people, my first ever triathlon, I qualified for the World Championships for my age group, and it's in Qatar. And what's the first question they're going to ask? Like in December, is how did the World Championships go? So you can't, I didn't do it. You've got to continue the story, haven't I? I think it's so, when we're going back off the conversation of what we just said about authenticity and everything else and people looking for credible people, I mean, that's a brilliant story, isn't it? And I mean, I'm going to use that to the death to promote as much as possible, especially at 55 years old, which I will be in a few weeks. So yeah, I am training at the moment triathlon, but I mean, when I went into that as well, I wasn't really training for triathlon. I was doing a bit of swimming, I was doing a little bit of running, and I wasn't putting it all together or anything. But I'll always do the gym. I find like the outdoors is the gym for me. The more I can wrap that into, I'll always go to the gym anyway, but if I can get out into the hills and stuff like that, especially at the back of Dubai, because I can't believe that there's people that don't actually leave the confines of Dubai. You know what I mean? Where I was out in the hills last week and the week before actually, and it was like, to me, that's the real Dubai. That's the authentic Dubai, the desert, the sand, the open space, the massive expanse. I wouldn't say this is the fake Dubai, because this is Dubai, but people don't understand what's beyond Dubai, and it's so important to get out there. I want to start getting involved in trail runs and everything else. But what changed for me, a lot of what changed for me is that the last 18 months has been so fundamental to my health and the reason why I am in the shape that I'm in. And that is, I started looking at my health on a cellular level, as opposed to just like gym and creating the image. It's like when I started to look on a cellular level with like 50 trillion cells thereabouts, I've not counted them, but thereabouts. When you start to look at your health on an individual level of each individual cell, and it's the supplements and the things that we start putting into ourselves, and also making sure we're not having the amount of shit that's out there these days, and also the fact that the soil is so lost when it comes to minerals. You actually have to have, I think it's a kilo of carrots to get what you would have done out of one carrot 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. And this is why, supplementation and everything else is so important, and getting the right stuff. So, I mean, some of I don't know, have you heard of like the bicarb of soda stuff?
Yeah. No, what's this?
No, like taking bicarb of soda, just that everyday product is like a wonder drug.
Okay.
Apparently athletes have been taking it for years. It's been like a secret, but it balances out all your pH levels, does a whole range of stuff. So I have a teaspoon of that before workout with a bit of creatine and beta-alanine.
Yeah.
And mate, I'm on fire, absolutely on fire. And also the fact that I've started to understand, there's been so much miseducation out there. We are literally, and I'm not teaching you to suck eggs, this is for the audience, but we are literally a salt battery. Now, we've been told to avoid salt and avoid the sun.
So here they take the fucking salt out of the water, out of the bottled water, which is a weird one.
Yeah,
I still don't understand.
Yeah, but this is how I've been trained, right? And then we've been programmed to believe that we should be down in tap water, like gallons and gallons of tap water every day. And I've started to understand now that we've got to put salt in. We were born in saline, right? In a salt mixture. What's the first thing you have an accident, ambulance turns up. What's the first thing they bang into you straight away to keep you alive? Salt. They bang saline straight into you. That's the evidence right there, isn't it? So I actually am constantly loading my body with salt, and I understand water. The water I use is a delivery system for minerals. The more you're putting crappy water through your system, you're draining all the minerals out. So it's almost like draining the battery. And then you're avoiding the sun because they've told you that you must avoid the sun because you get cancer. So when you do go out, you slap all this shit over yourself that actually gives you cancer. I mean, this misinformation and miseducation that's out there is horrendous. Now, whether it's intentional or not, you can make your own mind up about that. But it's almost like once you see through the lies and start to use your own head and make up your own understanding from the stuff you find that aligns with who you are, it changes everything.
Well, it's first principles thinking of health. If you think about what we were designed, you mentioned people live in caves. What would have you done back then?
Yeah. 100%. And also the way you eat and everything else. I mean, I eat OMAD, so just one meal a day.
Okay.
And it's not something I've always done. I do believe in fasting, but I saw this OMAD thing some time ago and I was saw it on the internet. And this doctor was talking about how good it is and everything else. And I was like, no, I could never do that. I could never do that. And then I just thought I'm going to give it a go. And because I was fasting until 12 o'clock every day, which was fine, I thought I could never go to 5 o'clock and then have a 3-hour eating window. Anyway, the first time I did it, it was just so easy. It was actually easier than doing the other policy or the other routine. And the reason I think that is because it's non-negotiable. For me, it's like the rule. And I'm not eating. Yeah, it's cut and dry. I'm not eating till 5 and that's it. So it really does control everything that I'm eating. And also the fact when I started doing this thing with the gym, with Raw, doing this transformation, they're like, you've got to stop that and you've got to eat 3 meals a day. It was 1,750 calories a day. So it's limited. It was only protein. And I started doing this 3 meals a day. I was angry. Like my missus, you ask my missus, she'll tell you, Laura will tell you, but I was angry. I was also, because it was small amounts, I was just, what's coming next? I was constantly looking for food. But I went back to them and said, look, I want to go back on OMAD. And they were like, I don't think it's going to work, but let's give it a go. And I went back on OMAD. It was so easy for me to do that. Because like I say, it's non-negotiable. I'm not eating till 5. I've got a 3-hour window. And then having 1,750 calories at that window, it's a lot of food. Whereas instead it was drip fed all day long. So for me, OMAD, I find the principle of what it's all about and fasting and everything. Going back to those survival days, we wouldn't have eaten every day. And this is, again, something that we've got to educate ourselves on because, we're pumped with all this programming about eating sugar the first thing in the morning. What do you think about that? I mean,
it's cornflakes is basically, there's a lot of theories around that was designed to try and make people infertile, and was why they pushed it into it from Mr. Kellogg's, whoever it was. Yeah. And for me, it makes absolutely no sense trying to force feed yourself in the morning. And even if you look from what we're taught in PT fitness school and that background, I've competed in bodybuilding shows and stuff like that previously, and I used to be, okay, I have to get up and do my cardio, then I have to eat, and then I have to train, and then I have to eat again within 45 minutes, otherwise I'm going to fucking get really small. And then a year later, I was like, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore. So I would literally just get up, train fasted without eating anything. I would then do my cardio after weight training, which apparently makes you really small, and I got in the best shape I was ever in. Yeah. And it was the simplest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the most important thing is, do what feels right for you, not necessarily and when I say that, I put that with a caveat of not like just sit on the sofa and eat fucking chocolate, but like if you find that works better for you, do it. If you find eating fucking all day works better for you, but for me, I'd rather not eat all day because I find it disruptive of like mental focus, and also okay, fuck, I need to go and eat again, but then I've got 3 hours of calls I'm supposed to eat, and I don't want to eat when I'm on a call. So it's, I think it's finding what fits you in your lifestyle is the most important thing.
Yeah, I just think that as well. You know, you look at a dog, for instance, what's the first thing they want to do after eating? Lie down, sleep. And that's why I think, you know, you go through that, and that's why you want the afternoon nap and all that stuff. And I just find, you know, with the OMAD plan, for me, it's like I get so much done. Because when in the absence of that, you know, as soon as you've got a bit of a problem, like something you should be dealing with, like for me, you know, if there's stuff I have to do admin wise for the business, when I was eating, the first thing I'd do is, I tell you what, I'll go and have a coffee, look in the fridge. Do you know what I mean? And that's your distraction. It's like creative procrastination. You know, it's like, and it makes life so much easier for me. Like I'm out training, I'm not having breakfast, I'm not having lunch, and it's just, I get so much done. And for me, the clarity is just incredible. When I started doing that on that transformation program, once I started eating OMAD, honestly, this is why people are like, that's AI, that picture's AI, or you taking drugs. And it does look like that. It actually does look like that. You know, veins are popping through. And I believe it's just because of that eating plan, that OMAD stuff, plus the salt water and everything else, which I find incredible.
Did you find that process difficult in terms of physical transformation?
No, I didn't find it. You know, it's the eating part.
So why had you not done it previously out of interest?
Because I was like, if someone said to me about measuring your food out, I'd be like, I eat healthy, I don't need to do that shit. That was my mindset, right? And then I went
a little bit of belief again there.
Yeah. No, it was like, I don't need to do that. But then I started, and this is why it's been so fundamental for me, because I then start falling into that trap thinking, well, you're 55, Ollie. Come on, you're not that bad. You can still see your feet. You know what I mean? So it's like
self-justification.
Yeah, self-justification. So I'm starting to think, well, I'm 55. I'm okay for 55. But it was such a limited mindset, because as soon as I said to the guy that was training me, I said, I was eating OMAD, but I was still not really losing that much weight. And he just said, well, what were you eating? He's like, I was saying, like, well, let's start off with a full hour. You know, I used to eat through that 3 hour window. And I at the end of it, I was like, I can't move. I felt sick. You know what I mean? Sometimes I felt sick. I'd eaten that much food. It was like, start off with a full avocado, eggs, sauerkraut, tuna, a bowl of it. And then I'd have my main meal, which would steak, eggs, all sorts. Then I'd have yogurt. And it's like, I've actually ate a whole day's food, you know, in one small period of time. So, but then once I started counting, in 2 weeks, my body changed massively. I mean, when I looked at 2 weeks and he sent me a picture, I was like, I didn't even recognize myself. And it was just incredible. It was just from that measuring, you know, doing the 7. I mean, it's extreme because they want to see that change in 6 weeks, but starting to really appreciate the amount of volume that you're eating. I mean, it's been an education for me. It's not just been a detour for me. It's been an education. Yeah. I was doing the exercise and all the gym stuff anyway. You know, I do cardio one day, I do gym work the next day, and I do that, you know, back to back.
It's an interesting word that I mentioned there, self-justification. For me, the easiest way to try and avoid that is surround yourself with people who are slightly ahead of you, because I think I see this a lot with people in their business. So they're maybe like an online coach, fitness trainer, whoever, they get to making 10K a month and they're like, oh, that's really good. And then they coast because it's better than 95% of people they know. So they they're comfortable, they get complacent. They got a little bit of money and they can kind of do a little bit of what they want. And then like, okay, this is cool. And that's where I think people need to have the people to fucking do down the road with 7 supercars or whoever it is. You see people who are leaps and beyond where you are, because it kind of shatters your perspective of what's possible. And I can give a good example of when I remember I went to a business event in 2020 and I met one of my best friends now, a guy called Frank. And I thought I was Billy Big Shit at the time because I was making like 30 grand a month. And I was previously a estate agent making like, I was good money, like 75 grand a year, but then making 30 grand a month on the internet. I was like, this is sick. So I thought I was like the nuts, whatever it is. And I was like, he's like, oh, what do you do? I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make this. And he's like, oh, so how much do you make? He's like, oh, like 1.2, 1.5 million a month. I was like, fuck me. And like literally my soul just shattered in that one moment, because my perspective of what was possible just completely was altered in that reality. And then he helped me a lot during that phase. And I remember my business went from like 30K a month to maybe like 50K a month. And I was like, okay, next time I'm gonna try and get 60. And he's like, don't be a pussy, you need to try and get to like 70. And I think we did like 80. So I nearly doubled the business in like 2 months. And I think that is where it's a bit like the Roger Bannister 4 minute mile thing, is you don't know what's possible until someone does it.
Yeah.
And that is where people need to surround themselves with more people who are ahead of them, because then they will pull you up to where they are.
Yeah, definitely. And I always talk about this because I did the opposite of this. And it's like, I think when you look at the people that you surround yourself with, I think it's a simple test, right? That you should look at, each person should have at least one thing that you're inspired by. Like, you look at them and think, I'm inspired by that. Because if you're looking at your friends, they've got no qualities at all that you respect or admire. You need to get rid of them. You know what I mean? And I had that. So, when we were first in business in the UK, and we were doing a lot of stuff around military, trying to sort of get the military lads back into employment and all this, that, and the other. And I employed a lot of people that, I looked around there was not one quality that I was thinking there's nothing about that person that I'm inspired by, and I think it's so important that you should look at the people close to you and think, that inspires me. They have something that you wish you had, not in a jealous way, but, I think going back to what you said before as well, it's like, if you're looking at someone that's wealthy and is doing well and you're jealous, what do you think about it? Because that, at the end of the day, that's a negative energy, isn't it? Right. And you're not going to get anywhere with that kind of energy. That's comparison. You start to compare your life against them, and then there's a jealous kind of feeling within, which really, at the end of the day, that is just proving the lack of what you've got. Do you know what I mean? So it's really important that you look at people like you've done with the supercars down the road and not go, fucking hell, he's got more than me. You know what I mean? It's important to go, wow, how has he done that?
There's actually like another house that they've just finished like last few weeks, and it's insane. I actually was like taking photos of it last night because I was like, this is looks like something like Grand Theft Auto. And I think for me, I see things like that as incredibly inspirational. And I think a lot of people, they look at the glass being half empty than kind of half full. And I think it's seeing what's possible and what can be done, I think, is the exciting thing in life, because ultimately, my opinion is that men, we are designed to kind of chase things. And if we've got things to chase and that gives us fulfillment, then life becomes a game and everything becomes more enjoyable. And if you can enjoy what you do, you naturally become better at the thing anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? If you're passionate, like I've just really started getting passionate about doing these online courses. I love doing it. I love going into the studio. I love recording content, and it's like the first time I've really reflected on my business in that way. It's like if someone says, well, mate, can you do as a video? The marketing guys, I'm straight upstairs. It's done within minutes. You know what I mean? It's like, I love doing it. And I just feel that I've really found my passion, because the first thing for me, it's like when I was doing events, there was a very limited amount of people. You can't scale up. Do you know what I mean? And everyone wants to see the bloke off the telly and stuff like that, and it's like, I mean, my mission statement is to create a globally identified brand recognized for the positive growth and development of others. It's something I would never achieve. Do you know? Yeah. I know that sounds bad. I'll never achieve it, but it's a massive,
it never ends.
It never ends. That's a better way to look at it. And this is what you have to have, don't you? Have something that's continuously driving you forward, and you're passionate about, and you're not doing it just because of the revenue. I do believe there's, when it comes to finances, it's an energy exchange. You know what I mean? I think the circulation of money is important, because if you have that sort of, like, no disrespect to my brother, but I don't know if I should say this on the phone in case he listens.
We can edit it out if not, sure.
But yeah, he's like the wealthiest in our family, but he is very protected. He's very safe. He's got about 5 pensions. When I say he's
risk
rich,
averse.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of assets. It's like his house is paid for. He's got loads of pensions, but he's so tight with his money. He was just over here in Dubai, so tight with his money. I would never, and I think that creates such a limited mindset. I mean, money should be a constant flow of energy, shouldn't it? It's like if you're so tight, you're always keeping your money within. You're never going to be paying money out on ads and things like that, are you? To ever.
Well, money's not there to be hoarded.
No, exactly. Exactly.
It's fuel, and you can use that fuel to go faster.
Yeah, and it's a tool for you, isn't it? And some time ago, before I actually had these sort of breakthroughs, you've always got to make sure you're in the driving seat. That's the way I look at it. I was money's bitch, I was porn's bitch, I was alcohol's bitch, I was drugs bitch. You know what I mean? I was all these things that had control of me. And it's like when I stopped drinking, it was the most powerful thing I ever did, because I never thought I could ever stop drinking.
Was there a catalyst for like one moment that stopped you drinking?
Not one moment. It was a series of events, over a period of time. I just got to the point where I was like, why am I doing this? And you've got to assign purpose for the things that you're doing. You know, if it was a friend of yours, you know, forever going out, making me look stupid, and making me make really poor choices on a constant basis and fucking stealing all my money, you'd want to get rid of that mate, wouldn't you? You know, and that was it for me. Drink was offering me nothing. You know, it was, I think the bad choices thing is enough for me. It's like, because even when I was training, if I drink, you know, they ended up being binges. So, you know, I hated the come down. So I had to keep on drinking. You know, I wasn't that person that do like a night out and go, I'm not drinking for another month. It was like, I'll drink the next day and the next day. So it was like, end up 3 days. But then all along that series of drinking, I would be making really bad choices, eating shit, you know, whatever. I didn't care. And then I'd lose so much creativity and productivity. You know, I'd get myself back on track on by Thursday, and then Friday start again. You know, it's like my life was going nowhere. It was hideous. So I got to the point, there was one point, and I'll say when I came back, I did my first series of SAS Who Dares Wins. Before we started filming that, like we went on a massive bender. You know what I mean? 2 days before, by the time the camera started rolling on day one, I was like a gibbering wreck. I'd not slept for like, you know, you don't properly sleep, do you? And it was like the demons were all there, you know, when I went to bed that night, and I didn't sleep at all, you know. So when the cameras started rolling, I was like needing another drink. You know, I didn't drink, but so anyway, when it came around to doing series 2, I was like, I'd been going, it was a battle. It was a constant battle, thinking I need to stop this. I need to manage this. It was always this constant battle. It consumed me constantly. And then it got to series 2 and I went, right, I am going to give myself a breather or not drink before filming. And then after we've finished filming, I'll get back on it. But just do that for yourself, Ollie. Just do that. And like Foxy was, you know, all the lads I was working with were like, they were drinking, you know, when they could throughout the filming and all leading up to the filming. And I wasn't. And then we did the filming, and this was in Ecuador in South America. And got to the last day of filming. It's the wrap party. It's a big fucking, you know, everyone gets loose. And I can remember Foxy come running up to me and he was like, right, let's get on it. He wanted Ollie back. And for the first time in my life, I actually, instead of going into that sort of subconscious program behavior of give me a drink, let's get shit-faced, I took a breath. And I thought about it. And I brought it from a subconscious kind of program into my conscious mind to analyze whether I wanted to do it. I was like, Foxy, I feel fucking amazing. I've not had this clarity for so long. I didn't say that. I said, I feel amazing, mate. I said, I'm gonna give it a pass. And he looked at me like I was a fucking alien. And he was like so disappointed, you know what I mean? But the retreat back to my hotel room was hideous. Sitting in there hearing everyone partying was hideous. But getting up in the morning at 5 o'clock to go for a run, walking over all the dead bodies was incredible. And that was it. You know, I stopped drinking then for 2.5 years. And then I thought I was missing out. So we're filming again in Chile, South America. And we did 2 series back to back. And there was a gap period. And I thought, you know what? I've done really well 2.5 years now. I'm gonna let loose a little bit. I'm in control now. I can sort this out. So I had a drink, you know, first time in 2.5 years. Fucking, I was an absolute hand grenade. Not in a violent way. I never used to get violent. And that started 8 months of drinking again. And I just felt, you know, it's just like, for me, it wasn't about you being drunk all the time. It was like as soon as I had one drink, I started making the bad choices. I started feeling less productive, less creative. I started feeling this lack of energy and motivation. And I just felt myself going back to that old way again. I just went, I went up to Scotland to do the recce for the next series, which was filmed in Scotland, SAS Who Dares Wins. I drank all week heavily. And then I came back home to my house. My wife had gone to the Netherlands to see some friends. I was in the house alone, got in shit-faced that night from the airport. My dog was there, Murphy. And I got up the next morning and went, you know what? I've had a really hard week. I'm not going to do anything today. It's beautiful sunshine outside. And I lay down on the sofa and I put the TV on. My head hit the pillow and I heard this voice saying, what the fuck are you doing? And I heard this going, if you weren't drinking, you'd be out there with the dog on the hills doing something very different. And from that moment on, I got the dog, went on the hills and never drank again. And that was it for me. I'd never go back to it.
It's I think a difficult thing for people to probably understand how hard it is probably for you as an identity shift to come away from. Would you say you naturally have an addictive personality?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm exactly the same. Because when I was younger, I kind of got into the drink and drug scene a little bit. But the thing that kind of kept me away from that was fitness, because I realized if I drank loads and didn't sleep, I'd feel like fucking shit. And it's just like, well, this is just pointless.
Yeah.
So you pick one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I chose the more positive vice. And I think that's where a lot of men, I think, who are very driven have very addictive tendencies, but it's just about choosing the right addictions maybe over the more destructive ones.
It's a good thing. You just got to choose the direction of where it's going. You know, it's yes, for me, it's you know, I understand how amazing this is. You know, our minds are so amazing. The system is so amazing. You know, a lot of people want to do it because they want to escape who they are. They want to escape the reality of their life. I don't want to escape anymore. It's like the hardest thing for me to do, and that's why it's so hard for, you know, we talked about before that our minds want to do what we did yesterday and the day before and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know who I was without a drink. You know, I'd spent all my life, as long as I could remember anyway, renting a personality whenever I went out. I was Ollie with the drink. And I didn't know who Ollie was without alcohol. It was an interesting thing. So again, my mind was like so scared to go into that not drinking and everything else, building excuses why I shouldn't do that. But once I actually crossed that bridge of discomfort, which is the ethos behind Breakpoint, you know, it changed everything. It's like I started to go and realize how much time it consumed of mine. And time, you know, can't get that back, can you?
100%. You mentioned the TV show in the UK, so you're now in the process of doing one here in the UAE?
Yeah, it's really exciting. The Special Forces trilogy, which is a very similar, for those that don't know the TV show in the UK, it's a very interesting format. It's based on Special Forces selection. It's a elimination process of people being pushed through the mental and physical barriers. Like I said, it's based on Special Forces selection. And it's done extremely well. I did the UK one, I did the Australian one, and now we've come to Dubai with not very different format, but a similar format, but different. We're looking for the ultimate human. So when we say the ultimate human, the psychological, the emotional, and the physical. So we're looking for that person who's like, you can have the best physique, you know, the ripped abs and everything else, but how do you stand up when it comes to your emotional state? How does it? So we're looking to test the individual on more parameters than just their physical ability.
What's the testing involved in that?
Well, there's an initial testing, which is a casting based on the Royal Marines, which I was a part of. So it's based on that physical test to get into the Royal Marines. We've just had a first casting. It's been absolutely brutal. A lot of people that, you know, have, you know, the High Rocks athletes have turned up and all this, that and the other who have not had a good time. But then once we've got through and we've got the candidates, then, you know, there'll be a certain amount of tests, a lot of physical tests. But you look at Special Forces selection in general, right? The first part of that selection process is extremely physical. You know, they don't want to go into the sort of psychological stuff until we've got through the physical. But at the end of the day, you know, the physical is the psychological anyway. So, but it's extremely tough when it comes to the physical to get rid of the main bulk of people who just haven't got the robustness to get through. But then we start looking at different kind of problems to solve. You know, it's like Special Forces selection. I'll say this, right? If someone said to me, what is Special Forces selection like? They rinse you to your lowest ebb, right? So you're on the floor, you've got nothing left. And then at that point, they say to you, now give me everything you've got. You know, and that is exactly what we're looking for. What are you like when it's not comfortable? What are you like when you've had your sleep deprivation? Like we used to get a lot of people on that, you know, physically fit, you know, and, you know, you'd look at them and go, they'll smash it. Or people would look at them, they'll smash it. But then you take away their control. You take away their sleep. You take away their fitness protein shake. You know what I mean? They can't decide when they eat. It's up to us. And that just shatters them. Then you put them through the hardest physical stuff and put them through, so we call it's not really interrogation, but it's more like sort of harsh questioning and stuff, some emotional stuff. And it really delivers the true ethos, the organic character, the raw character. You know, everything's stripped back, all the layers of the onion are stripped back, and we find the true person below all the bullshit.
What percentage of people made it through the first cut that you did recently?
I think there was only I think it was about 5%.
Fucking hell, really?
Yeah. It wasn't many. I was getting a lot of messages on my Instagram going, I'm totally smashed, totally. I've been eliminated, and all these people are totally broken. So yeah, it was. I mean, at the end of the day, we do want that high caliber. Whether the TV shows we've done in the past, they're looking for the stories, the backstories, and everything else. And sometimes they are so lost in the story that they're delivering a person to us that just hasn't got the physical ability to do anything. And you need the physical ability. We want the stories and things like that, but it's got to be the fact that you've got to have some kind of physical credibility before we even look at you.
Well, with the special forces, obviously there's testing for different countries do different things. What's the hardest special forces testing? So you've got obviously the US Navy SEALs, stuff like. Do you think the British variation is one of the most difficult?
Oh, I've got to back my own corner there.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. But, at the end of the day as well, we train in the harshest conditions. I'm not taking away anything by saying it's harder than everyone else's, but, it set the bar. Special Forces SAS selection set the bar across the world for selection process for Special Forces. And when you do train in the UK, the weather ain't your friend. You know what I mean? So
you talk about the UK and Special Forces. Obviously, 150 years ago, the British were feared across the world. We've now kind of gone the complete other way of being a bit of a laughing stock. Do you think the UK can come back from where it is now?
I think it can, but sometimes I'll say this, that sometimes the car has to crash before you can fix it. And sometimes it has to I think sometimes, especially with human nature, it has to get really bad before people feel the need to go through the discomfort of change. So I do think we can get it back, but how bad does it have to get before people start to realize we have to change something? Something has to be fixed. And sometimes you just, a lot of this stuff happens so slightly incrementally over time that we don't recognize it's going on. It's now getting to a point at the moment though, where it's like from the outside looking in, it's clearly evident. But I do think we can get it back. But how that happens, I don't know. I think each individual has got to start to have, I think really as well, the more we can get together collectively and start to come together and start to build from the ground up, I think that's the way it needs to be done.
Well, I think it's national unity. I think it's interesting. There was UAE National Day recently here, and there's flags everywhere. All the buildings lit up with the colours, and it's you see the difference in terms of patriotism here, the US versus the UK, where you're almost not allowed to put up a British flag in some places. It's a stark contrast, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at where we've come from. That tiny little island used to rule so much.
It's insane when you think about it.
And then I love going around here and you see the massive flags, and I'm proud to be, they're proud of their flag. And to go into the UK, I just couldn't, I think I'd get into trouble. If I was in the UK now, it's just the stuff going on. I couldn't handle it. I really couldn't handle it. And it's, I don't know where it's going, but it's certainly, the situation is shocking, absolutely shocking. So I think at the end of the day, there'll be, it's leading towards civil war, and whether that's what they want or not, I don't know, but it's leading towards that way. But the thing is, the one thing that they've done or has happened is that division, dividing people.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, I mean, look at this place, right? We've got every nationality you could ever imagine.
And religion.
Who's fighting?
No one cares.
No one cares. No. So that stuff is engineered then.
Well, it has to be, because what the irony is that apparently people are leaving the UK because of maybe Islam or whatever they want to say. But 16,000 of them have moved to an Islamic country who are millionaires. So it's got nothing to do with religion. So I think it's certain narratives being pushed, in my opinion. I think the only way it will change, I think, as you said, is some form of civil war. And the second is very strong tyrannical leadership comes in somehow to try and reform the country. But if and when that does happen, there will be pushback against that, obviously. Yeah,
but you've got to start thinking is it intentional for civil war? Because then they can bring in martial law. Then we start going to the whole dystopian control.
Which is not far off, because if you put up a post on social media, you can be nicked for it.
Exactly, yeah. But it's at the end of the day, if that's civil war, then is that intentional? so that then the whole place falls apart. Everything, they can then bring in the control measures that they want. So, you know, it seems to be happening. It seems to be going that way. And it's like, you've got to, you know, when they're celebrating Ramadan there, and then turn their back on Christmas. I mean, in your home country, I'm not against anyone or anything, but you know, when it's engineered like that, you are going to cause some major dis-ease below, aren't you? And you know, it's not a great place to be around. And the violence and everything else, it's just, what has the country become? You always got to look back, and you've heard it said many times, you know, you imagine the boys that fought in our wars, seeing what's going on, they wouldn't believe it.
The most sad thing I think I've seen in a very long time was there was a World War II veteran who was put on, I don't know, fucking Good Morning Britain or something like that. And they were asked, and he basically said that what they fought for wasn't worth what it's become now. And like, he was like basically crying, and 102, 3 years old. And it was probably one of the most shocking things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I bet. Can you imagine? I mean, you can never describe the atrocities that people went through in those wars, you know, seeing all your mates killed and everything else, and then seeing what's happening today. But, you know, the UK is, you know, has got no backbone. It's all that culture, you know, the good old humour of the everyday man, that's even not allowed to happen, isn't it? You know, because you'll offend someone. You know, it's just like, it's a shocking state, but it's not so bad here.
I was going to say, your transition moving here, what's your experience been like that for anyone who's in the UK, who's an entrepreneur, who's looking to move here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I absolutely love Dubai on so many different levels, not only in business, personally as well. You know, we were talking this morning about, you know, every day being able to do something when it comes to physical. When I actually moved here, I had no idea the level of focus around health and well-being. I had no idea it would be like that. Now, really, when you look at people, I mean, you can see what they're doing here, right? What is it, 5% oil nowadays?
Might be less.
Might even be less, yeah. So 5% oil. So, you know, there's a massive vision for Dubai, and you can be part of that growth spurt. I think they want to double the population in that time, don't they? Over 10 years?
Yeah,
something like that. 10 years. So, you know, so because they make their revenue from business, they make their revenue from tourism. So what are they going to do? And what are they doing very well? They're making sure that they give them a massive amount of opportunity for those people moving in, the entrepreneur, the small business, you know, and also making sure that they're the healthiest, happiest, and and also you can actually see where the money goes. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's some of the projects of the things they're building just to make that life experience so amazing for each and every one of us. You can see exactly where the money's going. It's like incredible. Now, what are they doing in the UK? The total opposite. You know what I mean? So they're suppressing all the small business, and it's got to be intentional because they're pushing people out. Surely it's got to be intentional.
Well, it has to be, because no one in their right, sane mind can justify why you would be trying to get everyone who's making money, who's like wealthy, who pays a lot of tax. You're forcing them to essentially leave. And even like the great example of that is you start talking about things like exit tax, whether you do them or not. What do people start doing? Well, fuck this, I'm going to leave before they do this. Yeah. So then the rate of people leaving kind of accelerates. And if you look at, okay, would I rather move to Dubai where I pay zero tax, basically, I have complete safety, there's great weather, and a very efficient and wonderful lifestyle? Would I rather live in the UK where it's not safe, I get extorted by the government financially, and also don't get anything back because even though I pay all the tax, the roads are fucked. You pay very little here, but everything works perfectly.
Yeah, but Charlie, they've got the NHS.
But which is also doomed to fail.
But that's the thing,
because it's the biggest fucking waste of money.
Yeah, but the thing is as well, for people like, you know, that are doing half well in the UK, you don't use the NHS.
We have private healthcare.
Yeah, you have private healthcare. So you're paying for someone else to use the services that you're paying for. Do you know what I mean? All the money that you've got is paying for people to be on benefits. I mean, another thing I love about this place is the fact, yes, you can come here, but you fucking work. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a full service industry. Like again, you can, like we said before, you can end up being extremely lazy, but if you use it as a tool to actually focus on your core business, you know, you got someone, I can make a phone call, not a phone call even, I press an app. My car is filled up on my driveway. You know what I mean? I don't even have to step out of the house. I get in the car in the morning, it's got a full tank of fuel. And, you know, all these people are here to serve you so that you can focus on your core interests, your energy. And I think that is amazing. You imagine if they actually did that in the UK, instead of giving them money and a mobile phone and everything else, and jumping in the lineup to get amongst Bonnie Blue. I was laughing about this. You imagine someone like on the friend to the friend back in Syria or something. Oh yeah, fucking having a great time. I got a mobile phone. They're giving me some money. I'm in a 5-star hotel, and I'm just studying the fucking lineup to bang Bonnie Blue. I just thought there must be loads. You know, with the hoods on. There must be loads. There must be loads. But anyway, we should apparently.
That's why they're coming over.
Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, jump in a boat. But and then jump in Bonnie, and apparently she's a fucking bloke anyway. Have you seen that bit?
No.
Yeah, it's just, there's some evidence to say that it was a man at some point, a boy at some point.
There's a lot of deception there for a lot of men involved in that. Then.
Yeah, well, exactly. But anyway, it's the fact that it's like, why don't they bring them over? Yeah, you can come over here, but you work. You support society, because straight away, if you said you've got to stand here at a petrol station and fill cars up, or you've got to stand here, clean the streets and do everything else, would that not incentivize you to get a better job? Do you know what I mean? But at least it gets people in straight away. Straight away, they've got something. They're serving the community. They're not draining it.
And it's solving problems.
It's solving, yeah, exactly. But and this place is brilliant how they've done that. There'll be a million people say, "Oh, but Dubai." So many comments I had when I moved here.
Like Dubai's built on slavery.
Yeah.
What is the whole of Europe built on? And all the wealth come from?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
define slavery. So if you look at the UK now, slaves were given food and shelter, and then they had to work. If you look at the UK now, people have enough money to buy some food, they have enough money to pay for someone to live, and then they go to work. Yeah. So it's just modern day slavery now anyway.
Exactly. And also then the other one, yes, but they're the human rights. I'm like, have you seen where you live? In the UK, you've got no human rights.
Or freedom of speech.
Or freedom of speech, yeah.
So even if you look here, something that's incredible is that if someone defames you publicly online, they basically get put in prison.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, like you can't, you will get put in prison for putting a post up about fucking the weather or anything.
Yeah, it's that comedian, wasn't it, recently? Yeah. It was a comedian. I mean, where's that? That is a staple of our society, isn't it? That humour, that British humour. And now people are, doing stuff. And some guy got arrested, like he was about to get on a plane. I can't remember the comedian's name, but it's like a SWAT team moved in before he got on the plane and took him away. And it's like, what? I mean, talk about, it's like North Korea.
It is. And I also think that the things that should have very severe consequences don't. Whereas here, things that should have severe consequences have very high fucking repercussions, which is why people don't get involved, because they know if you cross over the line, you're kind of fucked, which is also why you have a very safe and polite and good society. Yeah.
And you know what, a typical example of that for me personally was when I moved into, when I came here and I was like getting some cars registered and stuff. And we put one car through the RTA, we've got a great system there, which is their, the licensing. So we put one car through, then we bought it. And then the next day we took it back to get the plates done and everything. We ended up putting it through twice anyway. So anyway, by mistake. So I went back to the desk and said, look, I put it through twice. I didn't need to do that. Can I get my money back? And the woman was there, look, I'll see what I can do, Anyway, she called me over. She said, we can't do anything. Although you put it through twice, it's actually been tested twice. So it's gone through the process. I can't give you your money back. And I stood there and I just went, no problem. Thanks very much for trying. And I walked away from there thinking, if that was the UK, I'd have kicked off. But there's no leeway if I'd have started kicking off there, I'd have been
arrested.
Do you know what I mean? And that's not a bad thing. I think it's just a good thing, because it stops that.
Well, you're not going to escalate things, which aren't also massive.
Exactly. And it just having that kind of control, I think, is good.
Thank you for your time, Ollie. If you were going to summarize one thing for people going to 2026 that's going to come out at the end of this year, what do you think is the best thing they should try and focus on to maybe be the most successful version of themselves next year?
I think they have to throw themselves into a good amount of discomfort and start to get beyond their beliefs that we've talked about a fair bit about today, and start to do the work in themselves, especially when it comes to men as well. If we're not prepared to put in the time and question a few things in our life and start to invest in ourselves, then things will never change. So do the work, you'll feel the results.
Cool. Make sure you check out Ollie, guys. If you enjoy the podcast, please do me one huge favor. Make sure you subscribe and share this. And check out the next episode on screen right now.